Hi everyone, it's Nicole here for Simon Says Stamp, and today I'm sharing this beautiful daisy background birthday card featuring new stamps and dies from the Celebrate You release at Simon Says Stamp. The background of this card is definitely the showcase, and we're layering some die cut and stamped sentiments on top. I have stamped and embossed the daisy background on Bristol's smooth white cardstock using a clear embossing ink and white embossing powder. I'm then going to take some Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers and quickly lay down some color in both a dark and lighter shade per flower. I'm using peach pink and sugared almond pink for the pink flowers. I'm not going to color in all of the petals, but instead just kind of quickly lay down the color and then take a medium water brush pen filled with water and pull that color out to the end of each flower petal for a beautiful watercolored look. I'm going to continue to do this for all of the flowers on the background. I know when it's white on white, it's a little hard to see the pattern until I start getting more of the flowers colored. Next, I'm going to use bright yellow and yellow. And I didn't color in the middle of the flowers yet. However, I'm just going to take the darkest color for each. So in this case, it will be bright yellow, and for the pink flower, it will be peach pink, and color in those flower centers. Again, after I've laid down the yellow and bright yellow colors, I'm going to use my water brush pen, which I cleaned the tip of it off on a paper towel, and I'm going to pull that color out to the end or the tip of each flower petal. For any of the leaves in the design, I'm going to use light green and yellow green. I'll quickly lay down that color, pull out the darker color with the lighter color, and then pull it out even further with my water brush pen. I'm quickly adding that darker color to the center of the flowers and then just kind of blotting it up. For the purple flowers, I'm going to use violet and light violet. I definitely wanted the card to be bright and colorful. You could do these all in one color, or you could do them in multiple colors like I'm doing here. Again, once I have the violet and light violet markers quickly laid down, I'm going to pull that color out with my water brush pen. The great thing about this particular background is it's fairly large. It is very large, but it fills in most of the area, so there's very little white space. If you wanted to, you could go around the flowers and fill in that white space with a contrasting color. I left it white for my card today because there is so little white space on this particular design. For my red daisies, I am using Carmine Red and Light Carmine. These are the 4 color combinations for the flowers and the color combination for the leaves. So you've seen all the color combinations that I am going to use, and now I'm just going to simply continue alternating that so that I don't have 2 of the same colors right next to each other. I'm trying to create visual triangles with my color. So I've got 2 yellow flowers here, and then I will add yellow in another area where it'll create the visual triangle. Same thing goes for the reds and the pinks and the purples. So we'll add another purple daisy down here along the bottom edge. I find it easiest when coloring a white embossed image on a white background to move in small areas. So I started with one flower and then I'm just going to work my way out. That way it makes it a lot easier not to miss any area on the design, which can be kind of hard to do when it's white on white. I had tried to go through and color in as many of the leaves as I could find in the design, but again, I had missed one of them, so it's one of the reasons why it's so great to just kind of start in one area and then work your way out and around. This pink flower will kind of complete that visual triangle. You can see there's a little corner of one down there in what will be the bottom right corner. And then there's the one kind of offset from the middle, and then the next one. We'll add in another red flower here. Little carmine red and light carmine. Pull out those colors. I also try to not color two that are close to each other at one time until the water has already dried. That's going to help minimize bleeding from one to another. The embossed area also helps kind of minimize that. But that's one way to make sure that you don't have some purple bleeding into maybe green or red or something like that, something dark bleeding into a lighter color. We've got just a few more flowers to fill out, so I'm going to complete the red visual triangle with a red flower down here along the bottom edge. We'll flip that around and we're going to add in a yellow and finish with a purple. And then we've got one more leaf to color in really quickly. Now, once our background is completely dry, you can hit this with the heat tool if you want to, or let it sit and dry. I'm going to go ahead and die cut this with one of the new die collections from the Celebrate You release. This is the rounded corner rectangles die, and we're going to use the second largest die to die cut this background. We're actually going to keep all of the pieces for this background. It is A2 sized, meaning 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I'm going to tape it in place in 2 spots so that it doesn't shift. And then we will adhere the rectangle portion, the inside piece, directly to a card base. And the frame itself will be adhered with foam adhesive to give it a little bit of depth and dimension. I don't want to get rid of any of the areas on this design, and so I'm going to keep it all, but still add some fun little interest to the background. I'm going to take my white top fold card base, use a bone folder to score that in half. Here are those rounded corner rectangles. Nice little modern rectangle here. And then using the frame as a guide, I'm going to hold it kind of down with one hand. I'm going to take my tape runner, a nice strong adhesive, because we did add water to these flowers, so it does make the paper curl up a little bit. It's not too bad. I didn't apply too much water here, but it does curl up a tiny bit, so I want to make sure that I use some nice strong adhesive to secure that inside rectangle panel to my card base. Then we will pop that frame off, and using some foam tape, we will just frame this up. Once I have the adhesive all the way around the edges, I'll peel off the backing paper and pop this in place. You could also, instead of using foam tape, you could die cut frames several times from cardstock and pop it up, or you could put fun foam behind this. There are several different options to give this a tiny bit of dimension. You could also use just the rectangle if you wanted to and not use the frame. Once I have the frame lined up and secured to my card base, I'm ready to finish off my card by adding some sentiments. We're going to combine both die cut and stamped sentiments for the card. Because the background is so busy and it's the focal point of the design, I want to keep my sentiments pretty simple but still have them pop. There's a new sentiment die collection called Hey Mama, and I have die cut just the word hey from this, both the shadow and the word itself, from smooth white cardstock. The shadow was die cut 3 times and adhered one on top of another. It's kind of a tone-on-tone look. You could also do a contrast if you wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and secure the shadow in the upper half of my card, and then I will take the 2 die cut sentiments and stack those one on top of another right on top of the shadow itself. By adding dimension with additional layers, it makes it stand out a little more since it's white on white. I love that you can use the hey separate from mama, and you can use the mama separate from the word hey. I'm going to take sentiments then from the Tiny Words Birthday Stamp Set. I love the Tiny Words sentiment collections from Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to use some scraps of Hero Hues AZALEA cardstock and Amethyst cardstock and Gina K Wild Dandelion cardstock to stamp and emboss 3 different sentiments from this stamp set. I've stamped these with clear embossing ink, and I'm heat embossing with white embossing powder. Once I have stamped and embossed the sentiment, I'm going to take a previously released nested banners die and die cut my sentiments. I purposely picked cardstock that matched the colors of the coloring in the background of the card. Originally, I thought I would just use 1 sentiment, but then I thought it would be kind of fun to stack 3 of these below the die cut greeting. I'm also going to apply these with foam adhesive so that they're popped up a little bit and lay nicer underneath the dimensional die cut hay. We'll go ahead and stamp 2 more phrases. On the Amethyst cardstock, we're going to stamp Let's Celebrate, and on the Gina K Wild Dandelion cardstock, we'll stamp Enjoy Your Day. To keep it consistent, I stamped all the sentiments with clear embossing ink and embossed with white embossing powder. The white helps pull out the white embossed area of the background of the card and the white cardstock used for the die cut greeting. I love these nested banner dies because they die cut little strips perfectly. They're super straight and they have those great little either notched ends or angled ends, rounded. There's lots of options depending on the width of your sentiment. So if you use some of the sentiments that maybe have 2 lines of text, you could use one of the bigger dies and maybe not make quite as many borders underneath. I like to use a little Post-it tape to hold my die in place as I run it through the die cutting machine so that it doesn't shift and move. The foam adhesive strips are my favorite for adhering thin strips of text or sentiments to cards. It works so great because they're really thin and you don't have to trim down any foam adhesive or piece together little foam adhesive squares. It's just a thin strip of foam adhesive. Finally, I'm going to glue a little white heart in place from Honeybee Stamps, and my card is all finished. Thank you so much for joining me today for this birthday card featuring new stamps and dies from the Simon Says Stamp Celebrate You release. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Simon Says Stamp that you might be interested in. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.